Have you ever witnessed a moment so cruel, so public that it stripped someone's dignity bare, only for the truth to rise like fire from the ashes? It began on an ordinary morning at Dallas International Airport, under the hum of departure announcements and the hiss of coffee machines. By the time the clock struck 7:15 a.m., that ordinary morning had turned into a national reckoning. At Gate C9, Rosa Bennett, a gate agent with a practiced smile and a sharp tongue, held up a navy blue passport in her hand. Her voice dripped with disdain as she said, "This one doesn't look real. You people always try something." Across the counter stood Leah Carter, a calm, dark-skinned woman dressed in a neatly pressed beige blazer and holding a small travel bag. Her eyes were steady, too steady for someone being humiliated in front of strangers. "Ma'am," Leah said softly, "that passport is mine." "Please don't." But Rosa had already struck a match. A thin flame trembled to life, orange and cruel. Every sound around them, the rolling suitcases, the overhead announcements, even the chatter of families, seemed to stop. Rosa smirked as she lowered the match toward the passport, whispering, "Maybe next time bring something that isn't printed in a basement." The match kissed the corner of the document. Blue leather blackened. Gold lettering began to curl. A single gasp echoed through the gate. Then came the chorus of phone cameras clicking on. Passengers pointed, whispered, recorded. A college student named Zoe Martin raised her phone higher, her live stream climbing past 20,000 viewers within seconds. "Is she burning a passport?" someone whispered. Leah's throat tightened. The smell of scorched paper filled the air. The passport, her identity, was dissolving into gray ash. Rosa grinned. "Problem solved," she said, tossing the burning document into a silver waste bin. Next, for a long moment, Leah said nothing. She simply looked at the curling remains of her passport, the black smoke snaking upward, reflecting in her eyes. When she finally spoke, her voice was so calm that it sliced through the chaos like glass. "You just destroyed a federal document." Rosa folded her arms. "I destroyed a fake," the crowd murmured. A few passengers shifted uneasily, uncertain which side to believe. Leah's phone buzzed in her bag. The screen lit up. "Federal Operations. Priority call." She didn't answer. Rosa leaned closer, her tone venomous. "Go ahead, call whoever you want. I've seen hundreds like you trying to sneak their way into first class." Leah lowered her gaze, not in defeat but calculation. She quietly picked up her boarding pass from the dirty floor where Rosa had knocked it. The paper was creased, marked with shoe prints, but in the corner was a small gold emblem that few would recognize. Federal Priority Clearance. A security officer arrived, drawn by the smell of smoke. His badge read Officer Grant Wilson. "What's going on here?" he asked, eyes darting between the burned waste bin and the crowd of onlookers. "Fraudulent documents," Rosa said briskly, waving a manicured hand. "I took care of it." Grant looked at the ash. "You burned them." "Standard procedure when it's fake," Rosa replied with confidence that had become arrogance. Leah stood silently as another voice rose from the crowd, Zoe's, trembling with outrage. "She burned that woman's passport on camera. I'm live streaming right now. Thousands are watching." Rosa's smirk faltered for the first time. "Put your phone down, young lady." Zoe didn't. "The whole internet's watching this," she said. "You just committed a crime." A ripple of murmurs swept the terminal. Someone muttered, "You can't just burn government property." Another whispered, "This is going viral." Rosa rolled her eyes. Fake passport. Fake ID, fake story. Leah's voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of authority. "Real law enforcement will decide that." Her phone buzzed again, this time flashing a different message. "Homeland Field Division, immediate contact required." She ignored it again. The air felt heavier now. The acrid smoke reached the ceiling sensors, and the soft wail of a pre-alarm echoed across the terminal. A janitor ran forward with a fire extinguisher, but Rosa stopped him. "Stand down." "I said it's fake." Passengers exchanged looks of disbelief. Some recorded Rosa's face up close. Others whispered the word racist. Officer Wilson frowned. "Ma'am," he said to Rosa, "if that document was real, you just committed a federal offense." Rosa scoffed. "Real passports don't burn like paper napkins." Leah finally looked up. "All paper burns, officer," she said quietly. "Even the kind issued by the State Department." The officer studied her expression. Her composure, her vocabulary, none of it matched the image Rosa was painting. "Can you identify yourself, ma'am?" he asked. Leah hesitated as though weighing her options. "Not yet," Rosa snorted. Of course she can't, because she's lying. By now, dozens of passengers had gathered. Cameras flashed. Someone shouted, "Call the news!" The airport's digital board blinked. Flight 309, boarding in 34 minutes. Smoke drifted upward. The smell lingered like accusation. Rosa's supervisor, Janet Hayes, arrived, her heels clicking sharply on the tile. "What is going on here?" Rosa puffed up. "Fraudulent documents." Passenger tried to board with fakes. "I destroyed them." Janet's eyes fell on the waste bin where charred fragments of the passport still smoked. A melted gold seal was barely visible among the ashes. She turned to Leah. "Ma'am, are you in possession of any valid identification?" Leah opened her mouth to answer, but her phone buzzed again, flashing, "Federal emergency line. Do not ignore." "I need to take this call," she said calmly. "You'll do no such thing," Janet snapped. Suspects don't get to make phone calls. That word, suspect, struck something deep in Leah, but she didn't react. She simply placed her bag on the floor and folded her hands. The tension was unbearable. Some passengers had tears in their eyes. Others whispered prayers. Zoe's livestream viewership had passed 120,000. Comments exploded across her screen. "Call the FBI." "That's illegal." "She's too calm. Something's up." Rosa basked in the attention. "See? Everyone knows a fake when they see one." Leah's gaze drifted toward the flight board. Flight 309, boarding in 28 minutes. Her world, or at least her appearance of anonymity, was seconds away from unraveling. Officer Wilson shifted uneasily. "Maybe we should verify her through the system." "System's down," Rosa lied instantly. "And even if it weren't, people like her always have fake backups." "People like her," someone repeated quietly, disgusted. Leah lifted her eyes. "You seem very confident about what people like me look like." For a moment, even the loudspeaker seemed to hold its breath. Janet crossed her arms. "Until proven otherwise, you're not boarding any flight, Ms." Leah gave a faint smile. "You'll find out soon enough," and she would. But not the way any of them expected. The burned passport was just the beginning. Officer Wilson's radio crackled, but he barely heard it. The murmurs had swelled into a storm now, whispers about racism, authority, and law. Rosa's face was still smug, but the edges of her confidence had started to crumble. Leah stood in the middle of the chaos, unmoving. Her silence was power. Every second she refused to react made Rosa's cruelty look smaller. Janet snapped at Wilson. "Detain her until TSA arrives." Wilson hesitated. "For what charge?" "Fraudulent identification," Rosa said sharply. "You saw it. She destroyed the evidence." Leah's phone vibrated again, and this time the alert tone was piercing, unmistakably official. Several passengers turned at the sound. One man in a business suit whispered, "That's a government ringtone." "My sister works for Homeland, and I've heard that tone before." Rosa waved him off. Anyone can download a sound clip. But the tension was shifting now. The crowd was no longer laughing. People were watching Rosa, not Leah. The live streams had climbed to nearly 200,000 views, spreading like wildfire across platforms. Leah finally reached into her bag. Slow, deliberate, calm. Wilson's hand hovered near his holster out of instinct, but she simply pulled out a small black wallet, closed, resting it on the counter beside the smoking bin. "Do not touch my belongings," she said evenly. Janet rolled her eyes. "What is that supposed to be? Another fake?" Leah didn't answer. She just waited, as if time itself would expose the truth. Then came a voice from behind the crowd, male, steady, and official. "What's going on here?" The gate area parted slightly as Supervisor Tom Ellis, the airport's operations manager, approached with 3 uniformed security officers. He took one look at the scorched bin and frowned. "You burned something at a passenger gate?" "Fraudulent documents," Rosa said before anyone else could speak. "Handled per discretion." "Per discretion," Tom repeated. "Are you out of your mind?" Leah stayed silent, her hands folded in front of her. Her calmness unnerved them all. The security officers began murmuring among themselves. One of them, a younger man named Officer Daniel Perez, crouched to inspect the ashes. "Sir," he said, "this looks like it had a gold federal insignia. This might actually be—" Rosa cut him off, voice trembling. "It's fake. Those stamps are everywhere online." Perez looked doubtful. "Still, that's not how we handle suspected fraud." Tom turned to Leah. "Ma'am, what's your full name?" "Leah Carter. And your purpose of travel?" "Work." "What kind of work?" Leah smiled faintly. "The kind that ensures people like Ms. Bennett follow federal law." The words sliced the air in half. Rosa stiffened. "She's threatening me now." Leah's phone rang again. This time the caller ID flashed large and unmistakable across the lock screen. Federal Transportation Bureau. Emergency response. Every camera in the crowd zoomed in. Janet moved forward. "That's fake too," she said, her voice thinner now. "Anyone can make their screen say that." Leah picked up the call and answered quietly. "Carter here." The terminal fell completely silent. She listened for a moment, nodded once, then replied, "Yes. Confirmation received. Incident active. Evidence collection underway. Response team ETA 8 minutes." Then she ended the call and tucked the phone away. Officer Wilson blinked. "Wait, what did you just say?" Leah finally opened the black wallet she had placed on the counter. The gold badge inside caught the light. The emblem of the Federal Transportation Bureau, Division of Aviation Enforcement. Gasps spread like sparks through the crowd. Janet's mouth opened, then closed again. "That's not—" But Tom leaned in, eyes narrowing as he examined the holographic layers of the badge. The seal shimmered with authentic watermarking and federal signatures. "My name is Leah Carter, Chief Inspector, Federal Transportation Bureau. Assigned to the Office of Civil Aviation Enforcement," she said, her voice cutting through the noise like steel. "You just watched your employee destroy federal identification during an active undercover discrimination audit." Rosa's legs wobbled. "You're lying," she whispered. Leah turned toward Officer Wilson. "Under Title 49, Section 46301, willful destruction of federal documentation carries criminal penalties up to 10 years imprisonment and a $250,000 fine. You may detain her pending federal arrest." Phones went up higher. The live chat exploded. "She's federal? Oh my God, plot twist." "Rosa's done." Janet's face drained of color. You were undercover?" Leah nodded. "Your employee just became my case study." Rosa stumbled backward. "I didn't know." "It looked fake. I thought—" "Thought what?" Leah interrupted. "That a black woman in a blazer couldn't possibly carry federal credentials?" Silence roared louder than any voice. Officer Perez, who had been kneeling beside the ashes, spoke softly. "She's telling the truth. These fragments, they match the security threads in government-issued passports. That gold alloy, it's specific to official production." Leah looked at him, her expression calm but devastating. "Thank you, officer." Tom rubbed his temples, his voice barely above a whisper. "Rosa, what have you done?" In the distance, the airport PA system announced, "Attention. Federal response team now inbound for Gate C9. The passengers erupted in whispers again. "They're really coming?" She called them? This is insane. Leah placed the charred remains of her passport into a small evidence pouch from her bag. "You may consider this a secured crime scene," she said to Tom. "No one touches this bin until federal investigators arrive." Janet tried to regain control. "Chief Carter, please understand, our employee acted on her own. The company ignored 17 previous complaints against her," Leah interrupted smoothly. "All citing the same behavior, unnecessary document challenges against passengers of color." Janet froze. "How do you know that?" Leah raised an eyebrow. "Because I wrote those complaints into your audit file last quarter. Every person at that gate now stood in stunned disbelief. Even Rosa, trembling, could only whisper, 'Oh my God.' The digital board flashed again. Flight 309. Boarding delayed. Federal investigation in progress." Leah stepped forward. "Ms. Bennett," she said quietly, "you didn't just burn a passport. You burned federal evidence during an active operation. That's obstruction of justice." Rosa shook her head frantically. "I swear I didn't know." "It was an accident." Leah's tone stayed cold. "Ignorance of federal law isn't a defense. You'll learn that soon enough." The smell of burned paper still hung in the air, mingled now with fear. Passengers whispered to each other, their eyes darting between Leah's badge and Rosa's pale face. The first glimpse of federal uniforms appeared through the terminal glass, black vests with yellow lettering. The crowd instinctively parted as the Federal Response Unit marched toward the gate. "Ma'am," Officer Wilson said to Leah quietly, "they're here for you." Leah nodded. "No," she said calmly. "They're here for her." The flames had died out, but the fire had only just begun. The response team pushed through the crowd, their boots striking the floor like thunder. Cameras lifted higher. Zoe's live stream passed 500,000 viewers. Everyone at Gate C9 was silent except for the hum of the terminal lights. The lead agent stepped forward. "Chief Carter?" Leah nodded once. "Yes, Federal Response Unit, we have confirmation of a federal document destruction incident." "Then, you're in the right place." Leah gestured toward the waste bin where the ashes still smoked faintly. "Secure the scene." Rosa took a step back, shaking. "Wait, what's happening?" "I already said I didn't know." The agent's expression didn't change. "Ma'am, remain where you are." Janet tried to speak, but Leah's calm voice sliced through her. "Ms. Hayes, you and your employee are now part of a federal investigation. Please refrain from interfering." The federal agents began sealing off the gate. Yellow tape went up around the bin. The passengers were herded back. One officer began collecting witness statements while another photographed the burned remains. Leah looked at Rosa, whose lips trembled. "You've humiliated people before, haven't you? It felt safe because nobody ever stopped you." I was just following security procedure," Rosa stammered. "No. You were following prejudice," Leah replied, "and you made it policy." Tom Ellis wiped sweat from his brow. "Chief Carter, please, we'll cooperate fully." "We had no idea you had reports," Leah said evenly. "You chose not to read them." Rosa was crying now, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "Please, I have a family." "So did everyone you degraded," Leah said. Zoe kept streaming, narrating softly. "They're arresting her. The woman who burned the passport is being taken away. Oh my God, the federal badge is real." Her chat flooded with hearts and disbelief. Comments rolled past faster than she could read them. Justice in real time. "She's the real deal." "This is history." One of the agents turned toward Leah. "Chief, do we have full digital documentation?" Leah nodded. "Over 600,000 live witnesses across multiple platforms. That's more coverage than any surveillance system could provide," Janet whispered. 600,000? As though saying the number might make it smaller. "More by the minute," Leah added. The federal prosecutor arrived next. Assistant U.S. Attorney Elias Kim, a tall man with glasses that reflected the glare of every phone camera. "Chief Carter," he said, "we've already been briefed by headquarters. Do you intend to press charges personally?" "Not personally," Leah answered. "Federally." The word hit like a gavel. Elias nodded. "We'll begin formal custody procedures. The live stream evidence alone satisfies probable cause. Once we verify internal complaint files, this case becomes a textbook discrimination prosecution." Leah pulled a tablet from her bag, scrolling through a list of complaints. 17 reports in 14 months, she said. All dismissed. All involving passengers of color. Elias scanned the screen. "That's deliberate indifference. Corporate liability extends far beyond this one gate." Tom looked ill. "You're saying the airline?" "We'll face federal review of its operating certificate," Leah finished. Gasps rippled through the gate. Janet's knees almost buckled. Rosa sobbed harder. "I swear I didn't mean, intent doesn't erase outcome," Leah said quietly. "You burned a citizen's identity. You turned prejudice into fire." Two agents approached Rosa. "Ma'am, place your hands in front of you." Handcuffs clicked. Cameras flashed. The internet caught every sound. Zoe whispered to her stream. "They're taking her. She's going with the marshals." Rosa's voice cracked. "I didn't know she was federal." Leah met her eyes one last time. "You didn't need to know that to treat someone with respect." The marshals led Rosa away through the parted crowd. The once smug gate agent was now small and silent. A smear of ash on her sleeve, the last trace of the passport she'd burned. Elias turned back to Leah. "Chief, what's next? Preserve the evidence, initiate corporate audit, and inform the Department of Transportation that their field test just yielded results," Leah said. This incident completes Phase 1 of the Civil Aviation Bias Program. Janet blinked. Phase 1? Leah's calm was absolute. I was never just boarding a flight. I was testing whether an airline could follow federal discrimination protocols without prior notice. Your company failed in less than 5 minutes. Tom exhaled, defeated. This is going to ruin us. It might save others, Leah replied. Within the hour, federal teams arrived to escort witnesses to a conference room. The terminal buzzed with rumors. News networks broke the story mid-broadcast. Gate agent burns passenger's passport. Victim revealed as federal inspector. By afternoon, millions had seen the footage. By evening, Congress had requested a briefing. At dawn the next day, Leah stood in a glass-walled conference room in Washington, watching reporters gather outside. The burned passport lay sealed in a clear evidence case before her. The gold seal was twisted but recognizable, the symbol of the government she served and the identity someone had tried to erase. Behind her, Elias Kim spoke to a panel of officials. This case demonstrates the need for real-time discrimination detection. We have video from 17 separate angles, over 600,000 digital witnesses, and direct evidence of corporate neglect. One senator leaned forward. Chief Carter, what's your recommendation? Mandatory federal oversight of all gate operations, she said. Real-time monitoring, bias detection, and training accountability. Every airport, every shift. Cost? About $23 million the first year, Leah replied. Less than the price of one lawsuit like this. The senator nodded slowly. Do it. Outside the room, Zoe watched through the glass, her phone tucked into her pocket. She had flown to D.C. on her own dime just to see it. When Leah emerged, Zoe whispered, They're saying you changed everything. Leah smiled faintly. No, she said. We just recorded what should never happen again. And somewhere in a quiet federal evidence room, the burned passport rested in a steel drawer, no longer a symbol of humiliation, but the spark that had set an entire system alight. The story was far from over. The courtroom would come next, and then the reforms, and finally the reckoning that would stretch far beyond airports. The nation had seen what prejudice looked like when it burned. Now it would see what justice looked like when it rose from the smoke. 3 months later, the courthouse in downtown Chicago was overflowing. Reporters lined the steps, their cameras aimed toward the double-glass doors where the trial of Rosa Bennett had just concluded. Inside, the air was heavy with consequence. Leah Carter sat quietly in the gallery, dressed in her dark gray suit, her new passport sealed in a leather case at her side. The judge, a stern woman named Margaret Daniels, read the verdict aloud in a clear, measured tone. Ms. Bennett, you have pleaded guilty to destruction of federal property, obstruction of justice, and interference with a federal investigation. You are hereby sentenced to 36 months in federal custody, followed by 2 years of supervised release. Rosa's sobs echoed through the chamber. Her once bright uniform was replaced by orange prison attire. The very woman who had called Leah trash now stood trembling as a federal inmate. Judge Daniels' voice didn't waver. Your actions attack not only an individual's dignity, but the authority of the federal government. This court considers that an assault on justice itself. Leah didn't smile. She only lowered her eyes, remembering the flame that had once devoured her passport, and the quiet rage she'd buried beneath composure. When the gavel struck, it wasn't just an end. It was the beginning of something irreversible. Outside, reporters swarmed Leah. Chief Carter, how does this verdict impact your investigation? Leah answered calmly. It confirms what we've been documenting for years, that discrimination in transportation isn't random. It's systemic. And now it's prosecutable. Her words hit headlines within the hour. Federal chief turns burned passport into landmark case. In Washington, the Secretary of Transportation, Maria Gonzalez, prepared to sign a new piece of legislation, the Civil Aviation Accountability and Fairness Act. Cameras flashed as Leah stood beside her. This law ensures that what happened to Chief Carter, the secretary announced, can never happen again. Every major airport in the country will now implement bias detection monitoring, real-time auditing, and mandatory equity training. Leah's calm presence carried through the entire room. Technology will now do what empathy should have done long ago, she said. Over the following months, airports transformed. Gates that had once been ordinary became centers of surveillance and accountability. Digital screens displayed biased statistics, tracking in real time whether agents treated passengers equally. At Dallas International, the same gate where Leah's passport had burned, C9, was rebuilt from floor to ceiling. A small bronze plaque near the counter read, "In memory of every traveler who was judged before they were seen." Tom Ellis, now promoted to Federal Compliance Director, supervised a staff meeting there one morning. "We processed nearly 3,000 passengers daily," he told the new hires. "Bias detection has cut complaints by 87% in 3 months. And yes, every second is still recorded." Across the country, Zoe Martin had found her calling. The live stream that had captured the infamous moment had reached over 40 million views. Now at 21, she led a student coalition called the National Justice Network, teaching young people how to safely document discrimination. "When I hit that record button, I had no idea I was capturing history," she told a conference of journalism students. "But what matters isn't the number of views. It's the number of people who'll never be treated that way again because the world saw it happen once." In her new office at the Federal Transportation Bureau, Leah hung one frame on her wall, a preserved fragment of her burned passport. The charred edge still glistened faintly where the gold seal had melted. Beneath it, she placed a simple brass label, "From Fire Change." Her team had grown from 12 investigators to more than 50. Their job was no longer reactive, it was structural. They reviewed data from airports nationwide, analyzing millions of interactions per month. Patterns of discrimination that had once gone unnoticed now triggered automatic alerts. Her deputy, Aaron Patel, entered with a report. "Chief, the system flagged inconsistencies in Phoenix. Agents there are taking longer to verify minority passengers' IDs." Leah nodded. "Send a field team quietly." Aaron smiled faintly. "Another audit?" "Another opportunity," Leah corrected. By the end of that year, her department had logged more than 1,000 confirmed incidents and forced over 100 corrective actions from airlines. What had begun as a humiliating morning at a gate had become the foundation of a federal revolution. Meanwhile, Rosa Bennett served her time. 2 years into her sentence, she sat before a restorative justice panel, her voice hoarse but sincere. "I destroyed more than a passport," she said. "I destroyed someone's dignity. And when the world saw it, I realized what hate looks like when it thinks it's doing its job." She later volunteered at a community center, teaching service workers about unconscious bias. "You don't have to set a fire to burn someone's humanity," she told them. "Sometimes it's just in how you look at them." But Leah's reach didn't stop with aviation. Her procedures became a model for other industries: banks, hospitals, universities. Anywhere bias could hide, federal oversight followed. At an international summit in Geneva, Leah addressed delegates from 20 nations. "Discrimination thrives in shadows," she said, "but transparency makes it impossible to breathe." A hush filled the room. Cameras captured the image of the burned passport fragment projected behind her, a symbol no longer of loss, but of accountability. And back in Dallas, travelers moved through Gate C9 unaware of the story their footsteps crossed daily. Every boarding pass scanned was now part of a monitored, equitable system, a quiet revolution born from one woman's restraint and the world's collective outrage. Leah often walked through airports anonymously again, her new passport in hand. Sometimes people recognized her, sometimes they didn't, but she no longer cared about recognition. Justice had its own kind of anonymity. It worked best when it no longer needed a name. Still, every time she heard a boarding announcement echo through a terminal, she thought of the sound that had started it all, the faint crackle of paper meeting flame, and how that fire had changed the country. And somewhere deep inside her, beneath the discipline and professionalism, Leah allowed herself one small thought, that the ashes had been worth it. 2 years passed before Leah finally let herself slow down. The reforms she'd built had spread beyond aviation. City buses now carried bias sensors in their driver panels. Courthouses installed fairness monitors in public service desks. Every place where judgment could twist into prejudice now had eyes. Federal eyes, watching quietly for injustice. She stood by her office window overlooking the Capitol, watching the sunrise turn the glass towers gold. On her desk sat a framed news clipping, the passport fire that reshaped a nation. Below it, another photo, Zoe Martin, now a national advocate, leading students through bias awareness training. Aaron entered with a smile. Chief, the United Nations just confirmed your attendance at the Global Ethics Conference. Leah nodded. Good. Maybe they'll believe it when they hear the numbers. Aaron handed her a report. Latest figures. Bias-related complaints in transportation are down 84% nationwide. Civil enforcement cases down 71%. The system's working. Leah ran her fingers over the report. Working doesn't mean complete, she said. We're only as good as the people who still believe it matters. Her phone buzzed again, a message from Rosa Bennett. Leah hesitated before opening it. Thank you for letting me speak at the Rehabilitation Summit, it read. I tell them every week what ignorance costs. I don't expect forgiveness. Just wanted you to know I finally understand. Leah read the message twice, then locked her phone. There was nothing to forgive, only lessons to keep teaching. Later that week, she returned to Dallas for the first time since that morning. Gate C9 was unrecognizable. The floor gleamed, lined with new security panels that displayed bias metrics and soft blue light. A digital plaque on the wall projected her image from years earlier, standing calm amid the smoke. Beneath it, the words, "Justice needs witnesses." Tom Ellis met her there. His once nervous demeanor had turned steady. Chief Carter, he said with a respectful nod. I thought you'd like to see this. He guided her to a side exhibit, an enclosed glass case. Inside rested the remains of her old passport, carefully preserved. The edges were black, the cover twisted, the gold seal warped but visible. Next to it, a small inscription read, "This passport burned in prejudice, but from its ashes came law." Dedicated to those who choose dignity over rage, Leah stared at it for a long time. Around them, travelers moved freely. Families, business people, students, all treated the same by the scanners, all part of a world that had changed without realizing how. She whispered, "It's strange. Something that small started everything." Tom smiled faintly. Sometimes change doesn't start big. It starts when one person refuses to break. That night, she boarded a late flight home. The attendant checked her ID and smiled warmly. Welcome aboard, Chief Carter. The simple courtesy almost made her laugh. She thought about that day, the humiliation, the flame, the disbelief, and how all of it had become proof that quiet strength could rewrite systems. As the plane climbed into the night, Leah opened her notebook and began to write the last line of her report. We changed not because of outrage, but because accountability became undeniable. Below it, she drew a single line, a curve shaped like a flame, tapering to smoke. Her eyes lifted to the stars beyond the window, a sky as wide as every reform she'd helped create. Somewhere below, countless passengers passed through gates built to protect what had once been burned away. Respect, equality, truth. And though no one applauded or noticed, the world was safer now, fairer, quieter. Leah closed her notebook, leaned back in her seat, and let out a breath she'd been holding for years. The fire was long gone, but its light was still spreading.